McKinley. You're always too kind. Let me begin by saying, look, I support the EVs and renewable energy, but not on this particular timeline that we're talking about, politically driven timeline. But I'd rather on a free market approach, and certainly not until researchers have developed an alternative mineral composition for our batteries. Now, look, no one on this panel can tell us the impact on the global temperature changes that a 100% renewable grid in America and a 100% EV mandate is going to have. But what we do know are the devastating environmental and human rights consequences by pursuing this objective in this time frame. Look, in recent years, my Democrat colleagues have called Republicans, quote, climate change deniers. But I got to tell you, Mr. Chairman, maybe it's time they look in the mirror and ask for themselves, why are they denying these devastating environmental and human right abuses in order to obtain the critical minerals needed for batteries? Is it because they don't want it to occur in their backyard? Look, this road to get 100% EVs and renewables is littered with environmental damage and human rights abuses. Example, just the UN just came out with a report last year. That warned us about these. They talked about the critical minerals being mined in the cobalt by an estimated 40,000 children. And I've shown these pictures before, but here are some of the pictures of some of these children that are impacted with it. Here's another with the children being impacted. And lithium. To produce just 1 ton of lithium, you need to use 500,000 gallons of water, which consumes more than 65% of all the water available in Chile. And this will only make 20 batteries out of a ton. So, and there's similar problems in harvesting graphite and manganese alike. So, and excavating, according to Mark Mills at the Manhattan Institute, to make one battery, you have to excavate 250 tons of dirt just to get the minerals necessary to make just one battery. Now do the math, Mr. Chairman. As we transition to ultimately 20 million vehicles by, let's say, 2050, that will require 5 billion tons of dirt that have to be excavated. That's an amount that will fill the vast Chesapeake Bay just in 1 year. And we're talking about years and going on in the future. So isn't it time to be honest with the American people about the raw materials needed to make these batteries, where they come from, and the consequences of extracting these raw materials? This is nothing more just exporting American guilt and turning a blind eye to the devastating impact we're doing to these emerging nations, the environment in these emerging nations. So, Dr. Foss, can you just tell me, am I wrong in assessing these consequences with this government? Shouldn't we be considering alternatives like we've been mentioned before about hydrogen fuel cells and a carbon capture that we can continue to use fossil fuels into the future as part of our mix? Where am I wrong on that?
First of all, to be fair, anything that we do requires minerals and materials. We need platinum group metals or noble metals of other sorts for hydrogen-based fuel cells. We need metals for our legacy energy businesses, our carbon-based businesses, oil, gas, coal, whatever. The problem is the metals intensity in the vehicle designs. And I think you can go to just about any other source. You could look at something simple like copper, and you can see the amount of metals intensity in the electric vehicle designs versus the traditional combustion engine designs. So I think we have to be honest about all of that. When it comes to all of the excellent points that you're making about responsibility, accountability, governance, I think that people are aware of all of these issues, but this is one of the things that will take so much time. It's very, very difficult to get countries on the same page with regard to best practices in extractive industries, things that make sense with regard to responsible operation. I think the mining industry overall is actually a very responsible industry, has good practices, but the rules and the government oversight, the protections for labor and environment in other countries are not the same. And the issue is the cost structure of minerals that are available in the timelines that everyone is talking about versus where they're located and the governance structures in those countries. And I think that is what you're trying to get to here.
Thank you. And I just want to reinforce for everyone, you ought to read this United Nations report because it really does document very clearly some of the problems that we're foisting on other nations instead of doing it ourselves. So, Mr. Chairman, I thank you and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the brilliant chairman.